So my name is Stuart Gilly. I'm the CEO of the Alliance. We're in partnership with the East Baton Rouge Parish Library Small Business Division, if you will. 3 years ago, who knew about AI? Truly. What if I told you everything that you believe and know about technology would be completely flipped on its head 3 years from now? What's going to happen over the next 3 years is going to be incredibly faster than what happened the last 3 years. That's just the reality of where we're going. So what are we going to talk about today? We're really going to be focusing on like 3 areas: operations, efficiency, and decision making. These are 3 critical components to every small business owner. So if you guys look at, we're going to have Hunter Thevis, Brandon Cornett, and Henry Hayes. They're each going to be doing a breakout demo. In those demos, it's going to be about 30 or 35 minutes of tabletop exercise. My hope and prayer for them is that they take us back down to the beginning and say, hey, let's start with what it is that we're trying to look at, and I'm going to show you how I would build this. Anyway, so we have a great day in front of us. All right, Gabe, let's get started.
All right, good morning, everybody. So we are going to have a few opportunities to be able to get you guys involved in the conversation. We're going to be doing some book giveaways. We're at the library. So these are some really amazing small business books for people that are engaging. So we want you asking questions. Is that fair? Yes. Good deal. So great leaders are great readers. Again, we're at the library. We want to encourage you to be active on that. Now, I want to ask this question real quick before we start diving into all the technical stuff. You see the different segments in here, and you probably feel, depending on the day of the week, you're going to feel in different stages. Either overwhelmed, excited, you feel like, I'm ready to go conquer the world. The next day, you're like, oh my gosh, I spent 20 hours in AI, right? But the idea is you understand that this is going to be a journey. So regardless if you're a skeptic on AI or you're ready to go, like we got Rachel, she was telling me this morning, they are going to commit to go all in into training with her team. Champion, let's go, and her team as well. So we also have Brian was talking about like his team and AI, all immersed into AI. And there may be people that are like, hey, I just used a chatbot for the first time. I'm just ground zero. I want to know what's going on, okay? But the reality, what we wanted to share is no one has fully figured out AI yet. We're all like swimming in an ocean, and the more that we go through that ocean, the more that we find out, it's like, oh my God, there's so much more to learn. So it can feel overwhelming, but it's also super exciting. We're all learning in real time. So with that, we want to share a few principles.
Yeah, I'll start us off. So the first principle I would like to impress on you guys is really around mindset. And so I think what I have learned personally is that the biggest barriers for me around technology and AI was really my beliefs about myself. Hey, when AI came out, I was like, well, I'm not a coder. I mean, what would I know about that? I actually break technology for a living. And that's, again, another limiting belief and mindset that I had was that, hey, I'm not good at technology. I don't understand it. I am super a people person. I need other people to be able to embrace this technology around me. And it wasn't until that was really challenged by some of the people who were actually in this room who were like, hey, you got to stop telling yourself this same story over and over again. See, AI is not about mastery. It's about curiosity. And it's actually about, like, I think one of the things that let go of my mindset was when somebody told me, just go break it. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. It's like, yeah, you can't break it. But you got to go learn AI. And so I think for me, what held me back was really that mindset. So I'll share with you guys that has been like just a light bulb has gone off for me the last 2 months. And there's people in here who could testify this because they live with me on this. But I've had tools literally at my fingertips, in other words, on my desktop for years that I could not embrace. It was there to help me. It was all these things, but I had this like crazy idea that I had to master it or I had to do all these other things. And it wasn't until I let go of that mindset and leaned in literally like 60 days ago that things for me in my world are completely shifting because I no longer look at it from a perfectionist mindset. I'm looking at it like, all right, I'm going to lean into it. And if I break something, I've been told it's okay to break stuff. So if you're walking in with this limiting belief today of, well, I'm not a coder. I don't have this thing mastered. And so I'm just going to sit here and wait until I can master it. I would employ you to just like leave that at the doorstep and just say, okay, come in here, be curious, and maybe take any of those limiting beliefs and just set them off to the side. I think that can serve you well, because for me, it served me well.
All right. The first question for the audience, Stuart.
All right. So I'm curious, what is one limiting belief that you have felt or seen that's holding you back from AI? You can raise your hand and we'll call on you. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So really her question is around like the ethics of it, and she's in the HIPAA world. So that's a great point, right? And that is something that could be a mental barrier of taking that next step. What about another limiting belief? Yes, Luke.
I don't have the highest paid tier versions.
Okay. Got it. So a resource limitation of the tools and the technology. Okay. Any others? Yes, Nancy. It hallucinates, so I don't know whether I can trust it. Great point. Yes. What an interesting conversation. Ham radio and AI. Those are two words I wasn't going to put together today. Or two things. Yes, Thomas.
It will take too much.
Ooh, that's great. Okay. Yes, Rachel. Yes. Yes. So time is a factor. Very good point. Anything else? Yes, Belle. The sea of possibilities. That is correct. Where do we go? Yes. That's great. We're going to talk about that. That's a really good point. Okay.
One quick plug on the books.
Wait, I could keep going with that because that's like really good.
The science of rapid school acquisition. That's exactly what we need right now. The other one is the science of scaling. That's more business mindset and all the things that we're talking about today. And then this one is thinking in bets, because you're literally taking a bet on yourself when you're going to go invest in the AI. So really good books. So with that, we go to principle number 2, which is collaboration. And this is all about, it's not just the AI, it's people with AI. I'll share a quick brief story. Brian, which is right here from GatorWorks and his company, we had a small group. We did a retreat for 2 days earlier this year. And there was a mix of people, different industries, right? But the cool thing is I was obviously the hype up guy on AI. I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for a long time. But there was somebody, I think in like late 60 or 70 maybe, manufacturing business owner. He's been doing business for 20 plus years. Long story short, we spent 2 days, almost 8 hours straight. And out of that meeting, I saw the transformation of this person, like the enablement that I created on his whole world. Like literally after that event or that retreat, like the following week, he was texting us, the group, and it's like all the great thing that is happening in his life, the joy that he got back on his business. But he suddenly get this joy back. That was fascinating to see. So again, it's all about collaboration. That's what we want to have places and spaces like this, where you get out of your circle and go meet strangers that there's no other way you will meet this person unless you are here at this room, and go geek out on this AI things with other people.
All right. So earlier when some of you showed up right at 9, but some of you were here a little bit earlier, and we were doing something where I said, hey, I want you to connect with somebody, and I want you to ask about, hey, what is it that you're trying to learn with AI? So we're going to do that right now. Just a few minutes, but stand up and find somebody that you don't know. And I really want you to say, hey, Jay, why are you here? What do you want to know about AI? And I want you to share it. We're just going to take like 3 minutes, but it helps when everybody stands up and does it. All right, guys, we're going to get everybody to come on back. It's my favorite thing to do, and then try to wrestle everybody back. Hey, the truth is, the last 3 minutes is why we're here. That's it. We as a business community should be creating communities in which we can make new relationships, learn from other people. So real quick, what is something that piqued your interest that somebody else said? So you're now telling on your friend. Yes, Mary. Okay, great. So she learned about Gemini. Yes, ma'am. Claude. Okay. What else? Yes, Guy. Awesome. Congrats. Yes, Brandon. Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Yes, Kale. Boom. There we go. Put that on a t-shirt. All right. So let's keep going. So let's talk about leadership. So remind me, 180 Pros, your first name? Warren. Okay. Warren said something I think is really important. Some of us are old enough that we grew up in like a time when there were not seatbelts in the back. Reese, you don't know what I'm talking about. I barely know what I'm talking about with that, right? But there's others that are here. Okay, so if you're riding in the back of the car without a seatbelt and the person at the front is driving nice and smooth, you probably don't even care that you don't really have on a seatbelt. But when that person up front is making all the jerks and moves and all these things, I would imagine in the back of the station wagon or Suburban, that is the worst place to be. So if you're the leader of your organization and you watch the TikTok video for 37 seconds that tells you that you need to scrap everything you're doing, Todd Pettivino, and you got to download this app, and you got to get started on it tomorrow, and you got to do all this stuff, and then you walk in because you stayed up all night studying this thing, and then you just hand it over to your team, you're like, this is what we're doing. We're going right now. I mean, I'm so convinced. Think of them as in the very back of that Suburban, and you just took a sharp 90, right? Like you're just rolling them around because they don't even know what you know. They haven't even seen what you've seen. So leadership is very, very key to AI. If you cannot lead in your organization around the change management with your people, I'm telling you, this AI is not going to be worth anything because you're going to lose the most valuable resource. And the most valuable resource is not AI. It's your people. And so thank you, Nancy, but you also wake up every day thinking about this stuff too. So I know you appreciate that. But it's the truth. So leadership is absolutely paramount, and it's our job to invite them into these conversations. It's our job to say, hey, I want to show you what we're thinking about. This is our roadmap. It's also our job to be patient and to not just learn about Gemini today and go back and go, all right, Bella, that's it. Gemini, we're doing it today. This is the thing. And it's like, okay, wait a second. Can we talk about it? Can we think about it? Can we explore a few different options? So be good leaders, because the herky-jerky leadership, that's bad leadership. And that will ruin an AI project inside your organization faster than anything else.
The last one before we kick off this series of demos, which I'm really excited about, is AI and AI evolution and everything. It's not a one-time event, it's a journey. And for you, many of you may be like halfway through it. I think Justin is not here, but he's been talking about this thing for 4 years. But there's some really talented people in this room that are also doing great things. Jay Dixon, again, GatorWorks, we keep highlighting some of the same people, but we have 5 workshops coming up, which we announced. But there's also other things happening in Baton Rouge. I think Guy will, with Business Report, they'll soon announce some other AI things that are going on. LSU is coming up with some AI trainings. Is Charlotte here already? Charlotte? From New State University? Not yet? Okay, she messaged me. She will be here, but they are the first AI university here, which is cool. Anyway, so a lot going on. Our role at the library and the Alliance is to be curators for you. The library has a ton of training, free training, like completely fascinating training that is easy to implement with your team. And Andrew's going to be talking about that right after the break. So again, it's a journey, and it's not a one-time event. Last thing before we get to the demos, I actually talked to somebody about this slide right here, and this is not like a statement. This is just an observation of the different levels. All right, we talk about chatbots. So Gemini could be a chatbot. Could also be agentic AI. It could be a combination of all these things. So if we have the level 1 is a chatbot that's the typical ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. The next one is more of the co-pilot usage, where you are really leveraging some of this more done with you components. So it's more like, hey, I have these documents and I want to go deeper into might work. So the copilots will get you there. You have Notion, Cursor, and a bunch of other softwares out there. Agentic is where the evolution has been happening since January of this year. That's what it literally blew up. And Hunter's about to do a demo on an agent that is just so cool. You guys will be so excited. So Agentic is level 3. That's more like the Claude co-work. Rachel's, is that what you're doing? Yes. All right, a lot of cloud co-work, cloud code, ChatGPT agents. It doesn't matter the name, it doesn't matter the flavor. But then the last step, this is where things get incredible, is AI workforce. That's AI employees building AI agents. That's companies that have their agents that have their own bank account, they have their own LLCs, they have their own like human employees that are under them. If you guys go Google Blog, Jack Dorsey is the founder of that company. About a month ago, he ended up letting go about 4,000 employees. Yeah, but the way he did it was prolific because he explained that regardless that they were going in a extremely profitable path, they did it right in the perfect moment. And they explained the whole reasoning behind it, and it's fascinating. So please take a few minutes of the next couple of days to go check that out. Jack Dorsey, Block is B-L-O-C-K, Block. Jack Dorsey, if you Google 4,000 employees, fire for AI, you're going to find the article. But the point with the article is like they are reinventing what management looks like. If management is literally a stream of information. If you think about the managers checking in with all the employees, so like, what are you doing right now? What's our quarterly plan? Where are we going? What's the strategy? It's an information problem. And AI in this level and beyond, it becomes the company brain. So that's our goal of the next 5 months, is bringing experts and panelists like Hunter and Brandon and Henry to come share examples of like, how can you do that today? There are companies right here that are fully accessible with AI that you can query anything in there. You can query QuickBooks, you can query HR data, and all in a protected, safe environment. Other people are doing it very unsafely, and that's not what we want to do either. Okay?
Awesome. Yeah, so obviously we're going to hear some people today, but what we also want you guys to think about is if you want to go deeper. Again, so today you're watching what these guys are going to be doing, but if you want to have a work session where you're like, hey, I just would like to open up my laptop and I want somebody to actually like kind of start to walk me through that, that's what this is going to be. This is what we're going to do in this workshop. But here's the key to this. If you would like to come, this is the sign up, but there's going to be a few questions in there. Like, we actually want to know, like, where do you see yourself in these levels of AI? What is it that you truly want to know? It's that information that's going to inform Jay of the agenda of how we're actually going to work through that. It'll also let us know roughly how many people do we kind of need to put in a room that can be guides and whatnot. So again, we're going to pull this up later because you might be like the skeptic right now and you're like, I don't know, y'all haven't even showed me anything yet, so why would I join the next thing? But if you care to it, that's it. We'll show it to you later on.
All right, with that, we'll now transition to our panelists. But one last time, I want to just completely emphasize how important it is, and Andrew and Mary and the library, that this is happening for free. All the events are free, and that only can happen because the library is investing in this community, in small businesses. Why don't we just give a round of applause again for that? That's awesome.
All right, so today, these are our builders. These are the people that are building AI. And so we're going to start with Hunter Thevis, who is with S1 Technologies. And he's going to come up here and he's going to do something that I think is really cool in the sense that he's going to walk you through how he built and what he's thinking about when he builds his AI assistant. So come on, Hunter, let's go. Round of applause for Hunter. There we go.
All right, so I'll start with a story. My name is Hunter Thevis, and the other day I had the privilege of getting to play golf on a Monday, which is cool. It's a charity golf tournament. But in the midst of a Monday, busy day for us as a IT service company, cybersecurity company, AI company, I missed a lot of emails, I missed a lot of sales calls, I missed a lot of things that gave context to my day, hitting balls on the golf course. So as I'm leaving the golf course, it's 3:45 p.m. And so I open up my Claude executive assistant and I say, hey, what did I miss today? Oh, you missed 45 emails that were really important. You missed 2 sales calls. One of them seemed to go really well. One of them seemed to go quite poorly. Okay. And then, so Dr. Sue needs this email from me on company letterhead, on S1 Technology letterhead, and she needs it by today. And it's 3:45. I'm gonna get home and have a 1-year-old. I wanted to play with the 1-year-old. So I said, go ahead and draft that response, use the context from our prior meetings, which I'll get into why that's able to be done, and put this email in my drafts so that I can send it when I get home. So when I get home, I have a to-do list ready for me to do. It takes 5 minutes. I'll look through that email. I send it to Dr. Sue, and I say, hey, why did that sales email go poorly? It goes and pulls the transcript and the summary from that meeting through my executive assistant, through Claude, and I was able to find out why that meeting didn't go well. Our salesperson was talking too much. They didn't ask enough questions. And I had all the context that I would have had sitting in the office that day, debriefing with my team. So what I want to give to you guys today is something of a tutorial on how to go home today and set this up. It should take you about 15 minutes, 20 minutes if you're kind of getting into it. And there are 3 different ways that you can do this thing today. Actually, there's probably 100 different ways, but 3 ways I'd recommend. One is OpenClaw. Who here has used OpenClaw? Okay, so we have some technical folks. OpenClaw is kind of like using Linux on a computer or on your phone, right? If you've used Linux or a computer in any way, you know it's hyper customizable. It's a little clunky. It's a little difficult to use for a non-tech person. OpenClaw I'd consider to be super technical, kind of dangerous. Be careful with that one. What I'm going to show you here today is kind of what I'd consider to be the Android of this experience. You can customize your Android however you want. It can look a certain way. It can do certain things for you. And then there's another option I'll show you at the end, which is kind of the iPhone experience of this. You get an iPhone, you log in, you got your messages, you have your camera, your email's there. It's very, very easy to set up. But I'm going to go somewhere in the middle because I want you guys to kind of walk away with something that's a little bit more technical. You can go home to your spouse and say, I learned something today. Look how smart I am. So this is Claude. I use lots of different AI agents. I use a lot of different AI platforms. So we mentioned Gemini. I love Gemini. One of the coolest tools inside of Gemini is Notebook LM. If you are in training or you're in school and need to learn something quickly, like I'm currently getting my pilot's license. And so I have everything inside of all of my training regimen that goes through Notebook LM, and it creates podcasts for me with 2 people talking about something where I can interject myself. I won't speak about that today. I use ChatGPT because that was kind of the OG. I started using it about 20 months ago. But today, most of my time is spent with Claude, and specifically Claude Cowork. And so what I'm going to go through right now is a demo of how to set up Claude Cowork as an executive assistant and some ways to do that. So while he's pulling that up, some useful context. Context is kind of the word that people use a lot in this world. S1 Technology, we started about 5 years ago. We've grown in 5 years to just over 50 employees. We have 3 offices, one here in Baton Rouge, one in Lafayette, one in Anchorage, Alaska. And so in the midst of all that time, as a co-founder, as a president of the company, my job role has changed a lot over the years. And so as you can imagine, my email inbox can be a dumpster fire. My text messages, I have like 600 unread ones. I have 45 voicemails I need to go listen to. And so all of this that I'm going to show you was in an effort to try to make a better experience for my employees, for our customers, for me, for my family, to give more time back to me to do the things that are very high value, exactly the way you'd hire an executive assistant. And so before I get into this, one thing I'd recommend, if any of you are interested or curious about using some tool or some person as an executive assistant, is a book called The CEO Secret Weapon. That book is really, really important, and I'll get to why it's important context inside of this tool, but you should read that first, because a lot of people, even if you were to hire the world's best executive assistant today, you don't know how to use that person today. I guarantee you that 80% of you do not know exactly how to best use that person's time to enhance your time. So first thing I would do is read that book, or have maybe Claude summarize it. I'd probably recommend reading it. So this is Claude. How many of you used Claude before? Okay, about 40% of the room. So here's what I would do first if I were setting up an executive assistant for myself from scratch. So I'd go to claude.ai, I'd set up an account. You can use the $20 a month pro subscription. I use the $100 a month max subscription because I do a lot of other things outside of just using it for an executive assistant. But the first thing you want to do is go and download the application. So it goes here, you'll scroll down. If you use a Mac, it works for Mac. If you use a Windows computer, it works for Windows. But download it and install it, and you'll log in like that. So I've already got this installed, and I've already got it kind of booted up. So inside of Claude, you've got chat, which you've probably all used before. You've got Cowork, and you've got code. And just recently, Claude, Anthropic released some new tools that are really, really neat, like Claude Design, which I'll show you this at the end. It's like a little bonus thing. No shade towards GatorWorks, but it does really good design work. And then you can have GatorWorks go and review it after the fact. So Cowork, in a lot of ways, is sort of agent light. As back to this slide that Gabe had earlier, I really like that slide. A lot of you that are using AI today, you're probably just using it, or most people are just using it as a chat bot. I ask questions, I get information back. I need research, it does research for me. And that is still a core component of using it as an executive assistant. So for example, when I go into a meeting, which I'll show this to you, before I go into a meeting, I'll get research done on this deal. If I'm going to a meeting with Stuart, it'll tell me Stuart did XYZ, he's a member of ABC, and as a result of that, I've got really good, useful information and context to go into that meeting in any capacity. So what we've got here is Claude Cowork. The difference with Claude Cowork and chat is Claude Cowork can actually do things on your computer. And so one of the first things that I see everybody do is they install Cowork and they say, my downloads folder on my computer is a mess. I have screenshots and I have files that I don't know what they are, and I never really go back to it. I just use it as sort of a dumpster to drop things into. The first thing you can do is you can say, hey Claude, actually I'll show you this. I want you to go into my downloads folder and I want you to take all the files that are not currently named or in folders and put them in for me. So this tool that I'm using is called WhisperFlow. It sits on my computer. I really hardly type much things now. I mostly speak into it. WhisperFlow is a great tool. I have no affiliation, but it's great. So if I do this, it's going to take a little bit of time, but the neat thing about Claude Cowork is it will show me the progress of what it's doing. It'll show me the folder that it's working in, and it'll take any context that I might have given it or that it might need to do its job really well, and it'll show it to me on the right. And the reason, and Claude does such a good job of this, Anthropic has built a really great tool that lends itself to working inside of businesses really well. As business people, as executive, as entrepreneurs, we want to see the work. Imagine if you hired someone, you can see the brain processing that they're doing as they do the work, and you can stop them in the midst of something they might be thinking about incorrectly. But you kind of get this here. So I'm going to allow it into my downloads folder, and I'm going to say, do it by type and then date. And then it says, what should I do with the files that look like junk or installers you've already used? Just move it to suspected junk and review folder. So as I continue talking to you guys, I'll show you, it'll kind of work through this process. Right now, the most important thing I can tell you is this is the worst these tools will ever be. So if you go home and you start playing with this thing and it makes a mistake, just know this is the worst it'll ever be. And just like if you were to hire an employee and they walk into your office and you say, hey, go run the sales meeting for me. Hey, go do this employee annual review. They're not going to do a good job the first time. They're going to need increasing reps. They're going to need the feedback loop of you going in and telling it to do things. And as I get into building skills, this will be a kind of a useful point to come back to. So as it's working through that, I'll show you guys how I mostly use this tool. And so I will pull up my phone and mirror my phone here. Because as executives, as entrepreneurs, we are on the go. We do an annual Christmas party, and we give out like class superlatives. And my class superlative was most likely to have sent from my iPhone. I hardly ever sit at a computer and do things. So it's really nice for me to have an agent, executive assistant, that sits on my computer and can do things for me. So as I was driving in today from Lafayette, I said, so yesterday, as I was going home, we won a deal. We got a new customer, which is awesome. And I said, hey, go move that deal into closed one and change the deal owner because the sales rep that originally called on it is not the one that closed the deal. So it goes and does that for me. And it says, hey, give me my daily debrief today. I'm going to show this thing in front of the Alliance group in Baton Rouge. So please censor any private or proprietary information in your response. So it goes through and it gives me my daily debrief. What's the headline? We lost a deal yesterday. We had meetings yesterday. A lot of them were internal. I had some blocks to work on this presentation or what I was going to talk to you guys about. Some active prospects we might be working on, notable things that I need to work on today, and then pre-sales meeting preps for some future sales things. As you guys can hear, most of what I'm doing today is trying to grow the business and get in sales with the salespeople. But it did all these things for me. And then I said, hey, look, send a meeting invite to Stuart Gilly for noon to 1 p.m. today. The subject of the meeting should be Alliance AI Talk Debrief. Make sure there's a Teams link on it. So it goes and finds and says, hey, actually, you do have something at noon today. Do you want to schedule around that, or do you want to just move through? I said, move through. And so it goes through, and it sends the meeting invite to Stuart. So things like that that are a really useful context, I find it to be super duper valuable. So back to how do you set this up? So inside of Claude Cowork, once you have this thing installed, you'll go to Dispatch. And then I have this running on a separate Mac at my house, so I don't have it set up on this computer. But all you have to do is select Start, pull out your phone, log into Claude on your phone on the mobile app, and then scan it. And all of a sudden, you can now chat directly with your Cowork session, your executive assistant. I call mine Ava. And so just doing this by default, you will get a lot of value out of this. If you don't do anything else that I told you, you can just install Dispatch on your phone and install it on your computer, and you will be able to do things on your computer you weren't able to do before. And so that's all well and good, but I want to kind of give you guys some extra steps and things that you can do to customize your experience to make it better. Remember that book I said, The CEO Secret Weapon? So that's really important as it pertains to skills. And so I have a skills MD file inside of my Claude. The way to do this, very, very simply, is you go to the chat function and you go to build. You literally just tell it, I want you to build me a skill to be my executive assistant. I am ABC company and I am head of revenue and we're trying to grow double digits this year, 100%. And anytime that you plan to send an email, just put it in drafts. Anytime that there's anything you might want to change, just ask me before you change it. So all I've got to do, if I do this and I actually commit this, it's going to go into my skills and it's going to ruin the skill I already have. So I won't do it, but this is the exact way to do it. It's going to come out with a skill.md file. And all you've got to do is take that file and you press download and you commit it to Cowork. It's just 2 button clicks. Very, very easy. But once you've done that, you've got your executive skill, executive assistant skill. You've got all this useful context for why this works for you. For some reason, it's not large enough to see it. But for each one of the activities that I do on a day-to-day basis, so all of this, just think about this as like the marching orders for your agent, your executive assistant. And each of these things you can go and change on a whim. And what I'd recommend is first pass, it's probably gonna have some things in there that you probably don't wanna have, like make sure you don't send an email with this stuff in here. It's gonna have increased context about you that you don't want the outside world to know, obviously. But this is really just instructions for it. And another recommendation or just a pro tip I have, only have one skill to start. The more skills you have, the more things it's gonna have to go reference anytime you ask it to do something or anytime that it's gonna go in and try to do work for you. So one skill, in this case, S1 Executive Assistant. To your point, the nice thing, the beautiful thing about Claude, the reason why I've kind of put a lot of eggs into this basket is it has what's called connectors. So Claude can either work inside of Chrome with an extension in Chrome, which tends to be a little clunky, or it can work within what's called MCPs. MCPs are a fancy word that stand for Model Context Protocol, and you don't need to know that. It's not going to be on the test. But the reason that's important is it's able to basically communicate computer to computer without having to put hands on keyboard or move the mouse to do things. It's able to do it all via connections to those tools. So we happen to use HubSpot. So HubSpot is a connection that we have. It's incredibly simple to set up these connectors. And every day they're releasing new connectors. And so yesterday, they released connectors to Blender, to Autodesk, to all the Adobe platforms. So Photoshop, all the things inside of Adobe, it can now connect to those things and work with them natively rather than having to go to a browser and do the button clicks itself. This is kind of the superpower to what Claude is able to do. And it really saves a lot of time. Because I'll show you guys some examples of how I use this thing, and you'll notice that it's relatively slow right now, because what it has to do is go read the skill, it has to go out and do the work, and then it has to respond back to me and ask questions if it actually does have any questions that are important to doing the job well. So just scrolling through these quickly, you said CRMs. Let's go look at sales and marketing. So Monday.com, Adobe, Send, Clay, Ahrefs, ZoomInfo is a great tool, Outreach, Windsor, all these different tools. Each day they're coming out with new tools and new MCPs to connect to. The thing to think about is if they don't currently have a connector to it, you can request one. If there's not a connector, you've requested one, you can still use this application in the web. You will have to go and authenticate. So let's say you use Salesforce. You need to go log into Salesforce and leave it logged in because I don't like giving AI my passwords, at least not yet. And so the connectors are a really, really important piece of this, and they build off of the skills. And another pro tip is as you add these connectors in, make sure the skill that you built earlier references those connectors. Because if you don't do that, it'll try to go through Chrome and do these things for you. It'll take longer, it'll make more mistakes. Try to use connectors to the best of your ability each time and make sure your skill knows that. Sir in the back? I would say minimum is 16 gigs of RAM. And that's kind of just a baseline across the universe now. 8 gigs used to be the default. I'm sure Jay Dixon can attest to that. Now 16 gigs is sort of the default. In this computer, I've got 32 gigs. In a lot of ways, I probably go a little above and beyond the typical usage of AI. And so I want to make sure that the computer that I have is not a bottleneck for it. The computer that I have in my house is a Mac Studio, and it's got 128 gigs of RAM in it. That's a little overkill. Don't go spend thousands of dollars on a computer. You don't need it. So a couple of the, go ahead. No, ma'am. So this is it's called a skill.md file. SKILL. So it's a skill that Claude has. And the way that, yeah, basically it's kind of like a standard operating procedure. If you were to hire an employee in your business and say, this is the way that you act, this is the way that we communicate, these are the tools that we use, this is how I want you to get approvals if needed. And so think about it like that, like it's a standard operating procedure for your employee. So a big thing to think about here is connectors. In a lot of ways, I've moved some of the tools that I use outside of Claude because they have connectors to Claude. That's how powerful it is. So this tool Granola it's a calendar and note-taking app that I use. I also use a tool inside of virtual meetings called Fixer.ai. I use a tool for in-person meetings called Plod. I know a lot of you in the room have Plod devices. It's super powerful when you're sitting in a meeting and you don't want to have a laptop or a notebook in front of you to write down notes. I can just be very present with someone in the room, and Plod will take my notes. Inside of my skill, I've said I use Fixer and I use Plod. Anytime that I have a meeting, take those transcripts and commit them to your memory. So that, back to my example, when I'm leaving the golf course, I can get the transcript, the meeting summary of that sales meeting didn't go well, and understand why. And so, in a lot of ways, if you were to have an executive assistant, you'd want them tied to your hip. You'd want them to know what you know and hear what you hear and see what you see. And so, can't see what we see yet. I guess you probably could make that happen if you wanted to. But it hears what I hear. It knows my inboxes. It knows the text messages I send. It knows the phone calls that I make. It knows the voicemails that I get. And so all of that is done with connectors. And if I were to go through and show you every single one of the examples every single one of the functions that I use this executive assistant, that I use Ava to do, some of it won't make sense for you. Some of the things that you'll have to go and figure out on your own. Another thing I'll say just generally from 20,000 feet is I'm glad you guys are in this room, but this is sort of the starting block. If you really want to get proficient in these things, you need to come to each one of the sessions that Gabe and Stuart put on. You need to go and find a YouTube channel or a podcast that gets these things gets you up to date on these things. Because if I gave this presentation 3 weeks from now, it's probably a little different. And I've given this presentation 6 months back, and it's entirely different. I'd look like a Luddite in front of you guys if I were to give this presentation from 6 months ago. So become a student of this, and you'll get leaps and bounds of benefit out of the extra efforts you might spend in it each day. Like rather than watching a Netflix show for 3 hours, go watch some YouTube videos on AI. That'd be my point. The other thing about it is a lot of people think that you learn these things in this meeting from someone like me or someone like Henry. And the fact of the matter is you learn a lot more by doing it yourself. And you have the world's best AI coach sitting in this tool. And so if you were to say, okay, I'm trying to build a skill and it's not doing what I want it to do, you can go back into Claude and say, I want it to do this, but it's doing this. Please help me. It'll do it. And so if you have questions about how to use this in a marketing firm or in a CPA firm or a law firm or construction company, talk to Claude about what you want to do, and it will give you the step-by-step instructions on how to do it. And then you can have it go do it for you. So that's kind of my soapbox moment there. But we connect it to Granola, connect it to HubSpot, connect it to Local Falcon, which is an SEO tool we use, Microsoft 365, pretty understandable why we do that. Our website is hosted on Wix. We use that to build some workflows on the back end of when a customer sends us a notification, a series of actions cascade on the back end of it. And then ZoomInfo is a kind of a prospecting and sales tool that we use. And then Claude inside of Chrome, I'll show you guys that real quick. So this is Chrome browser. And inside of Chrome, we have the Claude extension put in here. If you want to learn how to put that on, you just go into Chrome, you go to Chrome Web Store, and you just search Claude. And you just install it on there. One click, very easy. And so once you do that, you have the ability to have this pop out where you can ask questions inside of your browser. If you don't want to stay on that desktop app, you can do it inside of the browser as well. Like I said, I have this running on my computer at home, so I don't have everything set up here. And then generally, I would say every single day that goes on, this tool gets a little bit better. And so I think the distinction of which tool you plan to attach your cart to is really important right now. I'd say at this exact moment, Claude is doing the most innovative things in the AI space for businesses. But I want to show you guys, because I only have a few minutes left, a tool that is kind of the iPhone version of what I just showed you. If you want to skip all this other stuff and just go to, I want to be able to text my AI agent on my phone from iMessage and I want it to respond to things, this is arguably the best way to do that. And it's only like $50 a month. Like I said, I use the Claude version that's $100 a month. This is a tool, if I wanted to not be a tinkerer or not be a nerd, I would just go use Lindy.ai. And so if you plan to go the Claude route, know that you have probably some additional mechanisms and things you could do to make it better for you. But Lindy, by default, out of the box, is kind of like an iPhone. So I guess with that, do we have questions?
That's great. First of all, let's give Hunter a round of applause. Yeah, so Brandon's going to come up next and talk about building an AI agent that's going to be like a business partner to help you make decisions. I love what Hunter is really, what he's talking about is like daily activities, how to move yourself forward with this assistant. If you have questions specifically about what you heard from Hunter, we want to field those now, specifically around this AI agent with an assistant.
How many skills, how many assistants do you have in Claude? Is it just the executive assistant out there?
I only use the executive assistant. It covers a lot of my bases. It will spin off sub-agents should it need to, and it'll just do it itself. But I only have Ava, the executive assistant.
So if you use that for your executive assistant, what is Lindy for?
So my point in saying that is if you don't want to use the Claude Cowork, the more technical, the Android version of this, you can go pick the iPhone version, which is called Lindy, and it'll do these things for you as well.
First, I want to say great job in breaking down a lot of technical stuff in a concise manner. But in modern day, with like with Apple and Android, they have two different operating systems, and if you get hooked on one, it's a whole other thing to learn a whole other operating system. Is everything you explained with Claude, is this Claude specific, or can you do it through ChatGPT if we're familiar with the ChatGPT operation?
You can. So ChatGPT recently launched Codex, which is very good. It has the ability to do agents, and you're asking a really important question that I think might be in a lot of people's brains is, okay, I've been using ChatGPT for all this time. Now I got to switch. It knows so much stuff about me. How do I switch it to Claude? If there's a series of YouTube videos, there's like a 3-minute YouTube video on how to switch from one to the other, where you basically take everything that you have in one and move it to the other. But it is a really important decision to make on which one do I use today, because moving it's a little painful. It's not too bad, but I would, yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, what makes you Claude over ChatGPT when ChatGPT was a popular thing in the beginning?
Well, I use ChatGPT a lot. Like I said, we have a 1-year-old. My wife talks to ChatGPT more than she talks to me. Like,
Probably
better, yeah. Yeah, like our son had a rash on his leg, and she went to 3 different dermatologists, and the 3 different dermatologists told her 3 different things, and so she put it into ChatGPT with the camera, and it actually got it right. And so she went back to the dermatologist, and they're like, oh, how'd you find this out? So I still use ChatGPT sometimes, but I primarily use Claude. The reason I made that decision is because I find it to be much better for business, and they're starting to iterate and put features out that are much more pertinent to me in my role.
Is the memory part changing in Claude? Is the
same, I switched, right? I did the prompt, I watched the video. I did
Awesome.
it. The biggest challenge for me since I've switched is finishing a chat and then opening a new chat and starting, but I haven't done what you're doing, and I'm gonna do that. But is Claude gonna start being able to know me better overall?
So I have a question for you. Are you using Cowork or using the chat inside of Claude? Okay, so there are some features, and you can tell it this with a kind of a solo prompt at the top of things, which is keep this memory a little better. A way that people create what's called like a second brain and do this is somewhat technical, but there's a tool called Obsidian that interacts with Claude. It works really well for, let's say, hey, I just listened to this podcast, make sure I don't forget it, throw it into Obsidian. And then Claude can go and reference Obsidian. If you really want a very specific second brain, I have found that Claude, their memory has gotten a lot better. And so long as you tell it, hey, make sure this stays here. If you're not working inside of projects or like independent search places, it should memorize most of the things you're telling it.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna do what you do.
Cool.
Is your use of AI, is the rest of your workforce have to be on that same page with you, or is it working independently from their data input and what they're doing with their jobs?
Great question. So his question was, does the rest of our workforce at S1 Technology have to use this same tool for it to really be effective? I'm kind of paraphrasing here. No, it doesn't. So the way that I built my skill is, and actually if I back up for a second, if you go online and you search skills, there are a lot of executive assistant skills out there. That is one of the easiest ways to hack you. If you download a skill that someone else built, there's this thing called prompt injection where people can inject prompts into your AI, and if it has access to everything, then you're kind of screwed. So make your own skill, don't go download someone else's skill. But the way that I built my skill is I said, assume no one else is using these tools, operate on all the same platforms that the rest of the team uses so that they just think it's coming from me, right? And so the rest of the team does use Claude for different things. The core of our business is IT support and cybersecurity. So there are a lot of things that we're doing with AI on the back end to create more operational leverage. A lot of those things are built with Claude, and Claude is sort of the connective tissue between them.
I guess to piggyback off of that is you reference to sales call didn't go well. That's working with an integration to your CRM system for your salespeople to put that data input, pulls it into the prompt. And
It's working with three things. So it's working with HubSpot. So the notes automatically from a meeting get put into HubSpot. But assuming that doesn't work, assuming that breaks, it's also pulling all of my meeting notes and meeting minutes from Fixer, which is if you've used, I'm forgetting all the other ones, the little like bot that sits inside of meetings and takes notes, the note-taking apps.
Like Fathom.
Yeah, like Fathom is a very popular one. So it's pulling the notes from that. It's also pulling the notes from my in-person meetings, which is from that Claude device. So it's pulling from really three different pieces, and it'll kind of verify and check each way before it sends me that information back. But yeah, there's some magic on the back end of that allows it to get that context and bring it back to me.
So this is obviously doing a lot for you, which is great. But what would you say to somebody who's just getting started with this in terms of how long it takes you to actually feel comfortable and trust the output that you're getting?
That's a great question that I don't have a great answer to because I think I'm too in the weeds. Getting comfortable with it is such a subjective thing. I mean, I would say if you really spend a few hours a day for like 2 weeks, let's call it 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, you should get quite comfortable with it in terms of what its limitations are, what its skills are, where you need to hold its hand and whatnot. I would say 2 weeks of like a decent amount of usage, you should be pretty strong with it.
I want to add there too. I think the other thing is specificity. Like find something you're trying to solve versus solving everything. Like, so I think stay to it and then say, I want to do this objective. So you're not trying to solve the world.
One thing, and it would have taken too long to show you guys this inside of my Claude dispatch, inside of Ava, the executive assistant. But one of the things that was kind of staying on this sales trend is I said, hey, go look at all of the meetings that I've had for the last 3 months. Go look at all my meeting notes. Go look at all of my in-person meetings. Go look at my inbox. Go look at my text messages. Make sure there's no one that we talked to that was a prospective customer that doesn't have a HubSpot deal attached to it. And if any of you are in kind of the revenue operations world, it's like that's your biggest overhanging worry. Like, are we going to miss a prospect that wants to do business with us in some capacity? So I said, hey, go look at all these things. Tell me if I missed anything. We'd missed 2. So there's 2 customers out there that were either they weren't waiting on us, we were waiting on them, but we wouldn't have followed up with them assuming that it wasn't in HubSpot. HubSpot is the point of truth for us on that point. So
I just started at S1 a couple months ago, and I just started learning Claude yesterday. So if anybody wants to share their information with me, kind of be like a little support group.
That's great.
Like
Say yes.
Give him a book. Try not to use it as much as possible. Try to do everything he's teaching everybody else to do. But I do think community, we're like learning this together. Feel free to reach out to me.
Jacob won a book, by the way. The first guy to start a community out of here. Let's go.
Could be a work, like you said, with getting somebody else's
prompt injection. Yeah, and then even upstream of that, in each one of your businesses, an easy thing to have Claude go and actually build for you and maybe have your attorney look at it, but build an acceptable use policy, which is just something that everyone signs. Hey, these are the things we put into it. These are things we don't put into it. So having that acceptable use policy is really important. There was someone that was a healthcare professional earlier, so HIPAA information, things like that. And that's simply a policy mechanism, right? There are things that you can do inside of enterprise versions of Claude or ChatGPT that will limit that ability. There are things that you can do to protect yourself that, another thing, back to this gentleman's question, Claude does a really good job of enterprise security on those things, kind of putting the guardrails in place, whereas the open clause of the world will say, hey, you got carte blanche, go do whatever you want. OpenClaw, if you've heard of this thing, it's essentially what I'm telling you about that has access to its own code base and go and change itself in real time. So if it doesn't have a skill, it'll go build its skill on its own. It'll go build a piece of software for you. It'll go delete a database for you. There's a big article that just came out about that. Any other questions? Go ahead. I'm a big golfer, back to the top of the story, and something I've been struggling with is coming over the top. If there's any golfers in the room? Yeah. And I've been trying to get into the slot a little bit. And so what I did is I used Claude Design and Claude Code to build me a swing analysis platform where I just open up my iPhone and take a video of me down the line, up front, and it'll tell me, hey, look, when you get to the top, try to feel weight on the inside of your foot here. So a really cool thing. It took me like 30 minutes to build. And so that, I mentioned the example with my wife asking it kind of being a second brain or like a second medical opinion. Always vet and verify. We mentioned hallucinations earlier. And then, like, in a lot of ways, I'll use it and I'll say, hey, I just had this conversation with an employee and it kind of has me feeling a certain type of way. Why am I feeling this way? And like, how should I handle this situation going forward? Almost like a therapist. So I probably 3 examples there of how I use it in my day-to-day.
Awesome. All right, well, let's round of applause for Hunter. All right, so we're already at AI with ham radios and AI to fix our golf swings. We should expect that an AI talk should go in all the different places, right? So again, Hunter Thavis, S1 Technology, thank you so much for this. And, great questions. And I would just encourage you guys, we do want to, Brandon Cornett, CIO with Paystar, is going to come up next, and he's going to go ahead and get set up, Brandon, if you want. But what I would encourage you guys to do in this next session, if you have questions, I definitely want you guys to write it down. We're going to try to get to the Q&A session. The other thing is, if there's burning questions that you have and you feel like we're not necessarily getting there, I'd like to invite you to a workshop that Jay Dixon's going to run on May 18th. And bring those questions. Jacob's right here. He's going to give everybody his phone number before he leaves. If you want to join a community that he just started today, the brand new AI Claude user. Yeah, so that's what this is about, though, guys. Getting in rooms with people who care about the same things that you care about, trying to work on those same problems. It's not about, what we've already solved. It's about what do we do together with that. So, Brandon, we'll hand it over to you here in just a second. Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, Jacob. So Jacob just did exactly what we all want to embrace over the next 5 months. He took action and he led with collaboration and co-creation and community. We're going to do another book giveaway right now. So anybody wants to share few takeaways from Hunter's session while we get Brandon set up. So takeaways from this session, what do you learn?
I downloaded it on my laptop and my browsers, so I'm excited.
Okay, she downloaded it. Come on, give it up. Woo! Let's go ahead and there we go. All right, who else? Takeaways. Yes, sir. Awesome. Thank you so much. One more. There we go. You can go mobile now. All right. We're good to go now for Brandon. Last thing is during our upcoming break, make sure that you go connect. Again, we've been saying this multiple times, but there's a reason behind it. So make sure after this session, we're going to take a break, 10 minutes. Make sure you connect with a new person.
How's everybody doing today? Awesome. So I've never met Hunter before. It's a great presentation wherever he went. But we're actually going to cover a good bit of the same tooling here. I'm actually going to try to make it more business focused and actually showing you a business partner sort of example. But I did have a few notes that I just wanted to start out with that I've kind of been holding in. Same thing he said. I mean, this technology is changing so fast that, I'll go and give a talk on this stuff and we'll schedule a meeting. I'll have a whole, they ask for like what you're going to talk about. And 3 weeks later, it's already changed to something completely different. So that definitely happens. It's moving really fast, but I really want to hammer home that you just need to start. Like pick a tool, commit, and just start working with it. Start asking it questions. No, it'll meet you where you are, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, just say, I don't know what I'm doing, help me. And it will give you like ways that you can go in different paths. So that's very important. Another thing I wanted to say is I've seen executives or people at my business at Paystar. So I work at Paystar. It's a SaaS company here in Baton Rouge. I've been in consulting for a long time. I am one of the same, I've been a coder for 15 years. So it's very interesting now that I can use these tools to make everything more efficient, to deliver faster, to communicate my vision to different people I talk to. So that's what it's done for me. But it's really interesting at Paystar. I see all of these non-technical people, these more executives or managers or directors at my company. They're being more effective in most cases than our development team is, which is a very interesting. They know the business kind of like I do. I try to bridge the gap between business and technology. These executives know the business. They've never had access to these tools to make their jobs easier and more effective. So, it's been really interesting to watch. And kind of, I went and talked to a Vistage group that Thomas and Stuart are over, and people just light up. Everyone, they have access to these tools now, and it just makes their job so much easier. They can actually get things done. They can move faster. So it's really cool to see just in the community. Everybody I talk to, you don't have to be a coder. I really want to hammer that home too. You can just approach this wherever you're at, and it will work with you. So another kind of tip that I would just say real quick is there's also a voice mode on a lot of these apps. So Claude has one. All I do sometimes is just open it up, hit dictate, or let's start talking, and just tell it your problem and just sit there. You don't have to be precise. You can just say, hey, I'm having a problem with an employee, or I'm having this situation. How can I deal with this? And you can just sit there and talk to it for 30 minutes and then click, go, and it'll summarize everything you just said. So having someone like a therapist, like Hunter was saying, is a really great way to just make what you're thinking in your head, just try to get all of that out and make it more concise. So I'll get off of my soapbox now, but yeah, definitely just start. All right, so real quick, I wanted to start with a show of hands and see how many of you have laid awake at night, at 2 a.m. wondering if you can afford to hire someone or buy a piece of equipment or take on a big customer. Right. I know pretty much every business owner I know has. So what kills me about that is, you're the small business owner, you're the person that knows everything about your business, the most on the planet about your business, right? But when you get to the question of can I afford this, that's really more of a math question than a gut question, right? That comes down to the numbers. So most of us just answer that with our gut and say, okay, I'm just going to pull the trigger. I'm just going to do this. But really, what you need is more of a CFO or a strategic advisor. The problem with that is, in most cases, those people cost $5,000 or $10,000 a month. So I kind of want to take you through what it looks like to use these tools to actually help you with those financial decisions. So I want to bring you through kind of a sample company that I just built. I also want to say that, I'm mostly on the technical side of this too. I'm trying to bring it down back to business, so you'll have to bear with me setting up the scenario. But I wanted to introduce you to Mike. He owns an HVAC company here in Baton Rouge. He's got 8 employees. He did $1.8 million in revenue last year. He's up 11% so far this year. And what Mike did is he emailed his accountant and he said, hey, peak season for an HVAC company is coming up soon. I want to hire a new senior tech, and what do you think about that? Can I do that? And his accountant said, go look at your cash flow. Didn't really elaborate, and Mike doesn't really know what to do with that information. Like, what do I need to go look at, right? So I wanted to bring you through what Mike thinks, or what Mike does with that information. He opens QuickBooks probably, he scrolls around, he compares this year's numbers to last year, maybe he stares at his bank balance, he talks to his wife, maybe he talks to someone else that he knows that owns a business, but eventually he kind of just makes that call. And usually that's already what his gut was telling him. So if he wanted to hire the employee, he usually will, and then the math kind of just gets backed into, right? It's like justifying kind of what I already wanted to do. So that's kind of the manual approach that would happen, and it's not bad. It just means that that business owner is making decisions on instinct, right? And really, we do need that CFO. The problem is they're just priced for, a company 10 times your size, probably, is what usually happens. So I'm going to swap over to CoWork and use the same tool that you just saw. Highly recommend Claude. I was also a ChatGPT user. I don't use ChatGPT anymore for no reason. There's nothing wrong with it. I've just hooked on to Claude. I've used it ever since. Just productivity and anything you're doing with spreadsheets or math or coding or anything like that. Really I find that it's a lot better. All right, so first I'm going to start with what I've done here is for this company, I'm calling it ABC Cool. So all I've done is really created this Claude MD file here, or I've given it instructions in this project inside of CoWork. And I said, you are my, I don't know if you can see this here, but I kind of don't have two hands, but you're my fractional CFO and strategic business partner. I want you to push back when I ask you questions, show me math, don't soften the answer. And it's really kind of that simple. Those are kind of the instructions. I also dropped in this folder a profile for the company, and really all that is just a quick snapshot of when the company was founded, about the business. So nothing, pretty much if I were to just go talk to chat and say, hey, here's a little bit about me, do that word vomiting thing I was just saying, right, where you just sit there and you talk to it and have it summarize everything. That's essentially what I dropped in here as a profile for the company. And then the last piece of information I have in here is financials. So this would be stuff you would give, an accountant that you just hired or a CPA on the first day that you started working with them. They'd ask you for all of these exports from QuickBooks. So I have, just a P&L. And these are all in the same Excel spreadsheet. I had Claude generate these for me. So I guess I should say that too. This was a profile, that was generated. So these are not my numbers. These are kind of a fake profile here. But a P&L, you got balance sheet, AR aging. These are all things you would go to QuickBooks on, just click download and throw them into the folder. And then what I can do is, again, now that we know about CoWork already, I can go ahead and say new task here. And what I'm going to do is say work in a project. So I'll pick ABC Cool here. And then, because I don't have hands and I'm holding a mic, I will paste in something. So what I'm going to say is, I'm thinking about hiring another senior technician this summer. Can I afford it? Should I do it? And also why it's on top of mind. I also do this Whisper flow, so I highly recommend Whisper flow too. I barely type anymore. I'm thinking about hiring another senior technician this summer. Can I afford it? Should I do it? Going to hit enter. So again, all we've done is give it a profile, give it our financials currently, and say, hey, you're my CFO. So we'll give that a second to work. Yeah. So, I mean, it was really straightforward. You're my fractional CFO and strategic business partner. I want you to push back, show me the math, and don't soften the answer, again, mixed with the profile of the company. But anything inside of that project folder here, just created a project inside of CoWork and dropped those files in, gave it a folder to work in. So we can see it's thinking through this.
Brandon, talk to us a little bit about what it's doing right now for those who maybe don't understand. What is it accessing? What is it doing right now?
Yeah, so I mean, if I open this, you can see exactly what it does. But it read the company profile, it loaded the tools, so then it started running scripts. So what it's doing is it's controlling, or it has access to the files that I've given it. It opened up that workbook, it started reading all the different tabs, and then it went through that thought process and then came back with an answer. So again, I was asking if I should hire the senior technician instead of going to my accountant and getting back, hey, just look at cash flow and make a decision. So this said not yet. Hiring an $85,000 or $87,000 senior tech on a 38K balance with 150K. So we have, in this spreadsheet it had that we have accounts receivable outstanding at one company for $150,000. And it says, and labor already getting less efficient. So, it's actually analyzing it and saying, hey, you're not making as much profit as you did, right? The people you do have are being less efficient than they were last year. So it gave us the headline, something that we can just look at, but then also because we said we want to see the math, right? It actually started laying out, why your gut's half right. It's giving us some numbers here, looking at the P&L, where cash went. And then if we scroll down here, you can kind of see, this is something I think a CFO would do because we kind of put it in that role, right? It's actually giving you, hey, do this in order. It's actually giving you a plan to follow. It's not just, hey, here's some stuff and no, you shouldn't. It's actually telling us you should raise your service rates. Your gross margin slid from 42% to 40. Let's see. So you should raise your service rates. Let's put Lakeside on a written payment plan by Friday. So let's make a decision on the outstanding 150K. Pull a dispatch utilization report. So it's saying, hey, we're not being as productive as we were. So how do we get better? So it's saying, go pull the dispatch utilization report. I think you could also just throw that in here, right? Whatever reports you're getting, and then you can start asking questions about that as well. So then it says, then hire, mid-July, not right now. So it says what would change my mind. But what I'm going to do here is open up my next prompt if I can get to it. So let's pretend, if you're talking to a business partner, CFO, you may push back, right? It's not just that, hey, what do you think here? So I'm going to say, what would have been true for me or what would have to be true for me to hire? Walk me through the plan with timing. So it kind of just gave us a plan. I just want to see what this does. But you can actually push back, right? It's a conversation and say, hey, I really want to do this. What can I do? So something else, I guess, while this is thinking that I would recommend, something I've kind of seen a lot about is always use those frontier models, so the latest and greatest models from the companies. If you're on the $20 plan, maybe you're going to use usage faster, but I've generally found that if you're using the latest models, the highest models, you're going to end up spending less money than you would have with kind of using a lower model. It gives you more usage because it's not going to think as hard. It's not going to, so you end up kind of going back and forth trying to get to where you were anyway, where you can just use the top tier models. Yes, it may cost a little bit more, but you're going to get better output. And you also have some security. I mean, I think Hunter would be able to talk more to this, but you'll get, the most of the latest and greatest security updates and things like that. And thinking about, hey, I'm not actually going to listen to that prompt injection type thing that came in, potentially. Still don't do that. So yeah, it kind of came back and said, here's some 3, go, no-go dates, gave us a plan. So target by July 15th, this is what we need. So it's still kind of saying, you need to delay this for a little bit. It gives us an 11-week plan here. So what I'm going to do now, just to move right along, I'm going to do one more thing. And I want to say build me a one-page daily snapshot I can pull up every morning before my first coffee. And I want it as a live artifact. So I'm going to do this. We'll see how fast it goes on the Wi-Fi here. But what this is actually going to do, hopefully, is build us a dashboard so there's something in CoWork called live artifacts. I know Hunter kind of mentioned dispatch, which is great. I was going to show you that as well. So now that we have this project, I can actually go on my phone, same thing, right, and say, hey, where's our cash flow at or something, using those connectors he told you about. And it can actually go pull that. So that's also great. But they do have live artifacts as well that I believe they just came out recently, where it'll go build me a dashboard. It'll pull things in from connectors, but you can actually get it scheduled to where every morning at 7 a.m. or something, it will go and actually refresh the dashboard for you. So again, you don't have to be a coder here. You don't have to be very technical. You can say, build me a snapshot, a dashboard that I can look at. And it says still thinking here, so I'm not sure that we're actually going to get to this.
Yep. Brandon, maybe while we're waiting on it to build, is there any sort of like 1 or 2 quick hit questions of what you've seen so far that Brandon can answer?
Yeah, anybody have a question while we're waiting on this? Yeah. This right here? Summer, probably, right? I don't know. Oh, no, it's going to be looking at the trailing. Yeah, if we could pull this up, you'll see, let's see. Year to date, 3-year annual. There should be, I may be missing it here. I don't specifically know, I guess. I know before this was actually this may be a memory thing, but it actually was doing all of 2025, so I don't know if it was looking at that, and I transitioned it to be, let's do a demo on current months. I'm not seeing that it's pulling it. Yeah, but that's just, and it may be in the profile too.
Yeah, it also could just be the math of if you know what you've done the previous 3 years and you see what's happened the first 4 months, it's going to see that your revenue's low and it's got to increase to be able to hit the numbers.
So this is different. So it looks like it built me something, but I haven't seen it inside of here before, so that's weird. So what I'm going to do is go to live artifacts because I did this last night. The other thing with Claude is they're doing, daily updates. They're releasing things constantly. So that's another reason I think that, people are kind of latched onto them a little bit is they're releasing new features. I was big into OpenClaw, kind of like Hunter was mentioning. That was a big thing, very technical. I believe that in the next couple of months, Claude's going to catch up and kind of outpace them and deliver more and more. But every working business day, I feel like they're releasing a new feature. So things must have changed since last night. I updated when I got in this room. But I'm going to open up one of these that I did yesterday as a dry, just me going through it. But you can see that it built this dashboard here. It gives you cash on hand. It gives you totals. So if you have connectors hooked up to this would actually pull from, QuickBooks or whatever it would be versus just the spreadsheet I have here. But you see the refresh button. It would actually refresh every day. So all you have to do is open Cowork, go to live artifacts here, or it'll pin something on the side. I have today focus here as an example. It actually looks at my calendar. It looks at, things I have to do, and it'll give me kind of a snapshot of what I need to do today. So again, these are very easy. All it is talking to it and saying, I want a dashboard on this information. Yeah. I've just recently, I had like 4 Claude subscriptions and combined them all into one. So I'm in this weird middle phase, and then OpenClaw did this thing where they stopped allowing Claude to be used, and I was using kind of that as my executive assistant every day, and I've just kind of stopped, and yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things I didn't mention is and maybe this wasn't directly answering, but I do want to say that I think that using these tools as more of a let's reduce our workload instead of let's replace our workload is a big thing for me. It's not, how can I get it to do all of my things? I don't personally think that we're quite at that company brain, having AI employees, like that's coming for sure. I don't think we're quite there yet. We're definitely solidly in the agent phase, is my belief. But I think right now it's best, like, how do I reduce everything I'm doing manual? I'm just asking, how can I not do this manual work? If I'm doing anything in a spreadsheet that's manual or copying things, I'm trying to automate it. So I'm kind of just using Claude as, I'm using Cowork, I'm using Claude Code to build websites, and I'm using, chats just to have conversations or ask about rashes and things like that. Yeah. It would work either way. So for this example, this is, a fake company I just made up, or Claude made up for me, and it's just in a spreadsheet, but it would work either way. It's always a hard question. I think Hunter would be better to answer that. Like, I don't have an actual answer. I would trust it with QuickBooks. I think it also depends on if you're a $3 billion company or a small business, right? There's probably different layers there. There's definitely layers with HIPAA or, personal information and stuff like that you don't want to give it in general. But I think it's just a conversation to have, and it's something you should do with, I think using your managed service providers or IT companies that help you, like, they generally are going to be more focused on security. So like, that's where I usually point people at is like, I don't know your specific data, but go ask someone that does or works with you all the time and how they would kind of put, guardrails in place to not give access to data that you shouldn't. Let me real quick, actually, I think I'm okay. I was going to show you dispatch, but Hunter already did that. And again, let me paste one more. Actually, let me type one more thing in here. I just want to show you. Just as an example, like, you're throwing a bunch of numbers at me. Like, again, just hitting home that it meets you where you are. I just want to put something like, I don't even understand. And you'd be surprised. At this point, like, if I'm using it to code something or do something, so much of my night is just spent like, I don't care. Just make it, you do it. Like, just stop asking me questions. Like, I'm just talking to it like it's someone that I'm working with, right? So you can definitely you don't have to be precise. You don't have to have a plan. Like, just talk to it. So, you can see I just said that. It's like, pick up the phone today and call Lakeside before lunch. Like, do that, right? So again, it meets you where you are. I think I'm ready for questions. And again, just hitting home, last slide I want to show is just, your homework. Do something. Start with something. Pick one manual task and automate it today. So what other questions do we have? Yeah, just pick a task. If again, anything you do manual, when you catch yourself doing something manual, that's the perfect opportunity to open Claude and say, how can you help me automate this? And just see what it can do, because it'll tell you. Yeah. No, I mean, as long as you know what information you're putting in, I would say just give it the information and just start talking. And again, I would even use something like the WhisperFlow app or whatever, there's a dictate button where you can just start talking to Claude, using your mic in Claude, but just start talking to it. That's the best way, I think. It's not like, let me type something out, because you'll catch yourself trying to be precise, I think. Just click the little microphone button, go into a closet or the break room or something somewhere. It gets weird when you're in front of people, but just sit there and just tell it what you're thinking, what's on your mind, and say, what can I do? How can you help me get myself organized? Yes, sir. I would again say that, don't necessarily, I would try to use it to cut down manual work right now. I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't just trust the stuff coming out of it. You should obviously get it verified. If we're making business decisions, it can get me to a spot where it would say, hey, you shouldn't do this. Here's some things you can do. But then, go bring it to your accountant and say, does this check out or something like that, right? Go ask another business owner, does this make sense? So I will say that I think we've been with AI for 3 or 4 years now, right? I think in the beginning, I do see a lot of babysitting going on, or a lot of thinking we have to hold its hand, or that it's getting better. I just want to say that to Hunter's point, it's only going to get better from here. So maybe it is hallucinating. Definitely don't trust it to make life-changing decisions or anything without verifying the data. But if you have a question about what it's saying, it gives you a plan. I think you could say, hey, I don't really understand what you're saying. Break it down for me, even. So you can either go bring it to somebody that is an expert real quick after you've done the heavy lifting with it, or you can have it explain it to you a little bit more, or say, I'm not sure I want to make this decision. Give me some supporting evidence or something. And you just talk to it. But use the latest models, because those are going to be the ones that are trained. They hallucinate less. I don't think we're still in that world where you have to hold its hand and it's giving you weird off-the-wall things. If you have $20 a month, I think you can use that most of the day probably and get a lot of work done.
Before we move to the next question, I think Brandon brought up a really good point, and I'd like everybody to grab a pen and your notebook real quick, and let's do what he's asking us to do. So he has talked about building an agentic business partner, essentially, CFO, somebody. If you had that tool today, what's the question you would ask? The burning question you would ask? He asked, can I hire this guy because he's laying in bed at night, and $87,500 is a big investment for him. So for you individually in your role, what's the question you would ask? Let's just take like 1 or 2 minutes and write that down, because that might be the inspiration you need to go jump into this a little bit more.
And then what data do I need to support that, right? Where can I go get my data? Where does that stuff live that I can pull and give it to it just to give it information? It won't be overwhelmed by information either. I mean, you can throw a whole bunch at it, and you may hit a limit or something, but that limit will expire, and the next day you can come back and keep going with the conversation. Another big point is that sorry if I'm talking during your
no, it's okay. I mean, I just want to make sure people are writing something down, because that's what it's about, right? Great question earlier. Somebody asked too, well, where do I go? Well, it's pick one thing that you want to go do. And I think if everybody walked out of here with the one thing that they would like AI to help them with, or for them to learn about, there could be value to that. I'd love for somebody to, show up to the May 18th workshop and be like, yeah, I walked out with a question. Look at what I learned.
Another point I'm just thinking of, sorry to change the topic a little bit, but you're going to spend, an hour talking to this AI about whatever topic you're doing. You've wasted, maybe not even an hour. You've wasted 30 minutes talking to this, coming up with a solution, or coming up with, hey, give me this a spreadsheet or a slide deck or something like that. It's really good at slide decks, by the way. I didn't build this slide deck. It did after talking to it. So a big thing is that you're not wasting your time. The feedback loop has gotten a lot smaller. Like working with clients, we used to have to go build things for 2 months for them before we could show them anything. And now I can just talk with it for an hour and show them kind of what I'm thinking. You can do the same thing. If you have a conversation, you don't like where it went, throw it away. You can always start over, right? And you've wasted 30 minutes instead of wasting days and days or thousands of dollars talking to somebody. But just do it. I guess I should have the Shia LaBeouf thing. Just do it. Big believer in that. Anything else before I wrap up? Yeah.
So you're using Opus 4.7. Speaking of like using the latest version, is there any like concrete things you've noticed upgrading from 4.6 to 4.7, or are you just kind of trusting that it's giving you the best outcome possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 4.6, so the last version they had where I really noticed it. But I mean, so I'm just going to use coding as an example. I realized the other day, I've been coding for, again, 15, 20 years. I realized the other day that I've written a lot of apps. I have not written a single line of code in the last 6 months. And I think that's a pretty powerful statement. I have someone working under me that is a developer, actively like doing the projects, actual projects for us. They also have not written code in 6 months, not one line. If it's, hey, go change that thing, like we're just kind of telling it, go change that line or something like that, or I don't like this, or it's not efficient. So it was interesting I realized I'm in the last generation of coders probably, which is a weird statement. But it's really good. You just have to try it too. Give it a task, give it some off the wall, crazy task you don't think anyone's, that you've been pondering for 5 years and no one's been able to give you an answer. Go try it, just ask. I can't say that enough and I'm gonna sit here and repeat myself. Just start doing it, just ask it a question, pick something manual.
Okay, I know I came in a few minutes late. And I just read, this is a little clearer. You was talking about earlier about workshops. What I'm comprehending now is this tool can help get an employee. Can this tool help with other things, other situations that you're trying to organize? It sounds like so far, it just sounds like it's helping you in your every day at work, making your life easy for its work. So can it help with other situations, other tools to help you do other things to get ahead?
Yeah, I mean, anything you can do on your computer, it can do. Anything you want to just have someone to bounce an idea off of, it can help you with that. I'm trying to think of other examples that I use it for. I'm not a mechanic, so working on my truck, I'm just asking the questions all the time, right, on what I can do. So I don't know if that was what you were specifically asking, but anything you want it to do, it can do. It can role play as any, a CFO. It can be the best coder in the world. It can be the no finance. It can know account. I mean, it's just really good at anything you throw at it, I think.
Yeah, I think the answer is just so we started the workshop today talking about operations, efficiency, and decision making. So if you think about like those three tenets, regardless if we're talking about your personal life, business, any aspect of business, any aspect of your personal life, I think the reality of it is the answer is yes. Now, again, I think it's about getting into a space like this to be able to like understand like, hey, well, how are you doing that? And having people like Brandon and Hunter and Henry being able to say, okay, well, I need it to make a financial decision, or I need it to have this assistant, and being able to go use that. I think the where it might get confusing is like, well, I don't know how to go do that, so I'm just not going to do it. Versus, can I get in a room with other people who are trying to do it as well? No one's perfect with this stuff. Like he's saying, even if you do something, and even if it's for your personal life, and it doesn't make sense, throw it away. Open up a new file. Go to a new space, because you've now learned some things, and maybe you prompt better. Maybe you're asking better questions. It's all an iterative process. We started this also saying nobody has this all figured out. And if they do tell you they have it all figured out, run. Go to the other places, because they don't. But it's going to be through testing and trying, and not worrying about if I break something or hey, is this a silly question? No, there are no silly questions. Just lean into it and use it.
And I do think, the YouTube videos and listening and learning and coming to these, I think we already said this a little bit, but coming to these is one thing. And that's kind of to the flying point. I have my pilot's license as well, but some analogy I kind of came up with was, it's not only you have to do the courses, you have to do the ground school, the training, right? You have to go through what is this and how does this instrument work and things like that. So that's kind of what you guys are doing. There's another part of actually flying. The more you fly, the more you're sitting there doing it, the more it becomes kind of second nature. You're not going to be able to use it efficiently unless you actually start using the tools, right? So there's definitely the learning part, and there's the learning. I mean, this was true as a developer. There's what makes a good senior developer. And it's when you go up in coding or technical profession, it's more about your experience. It's more about knowing what options you have to build things and what tools do I have available to me. So I think that's very important, where the more you explore, you try Claude, maybe you try ChatGPT, you try Lindy, I believe it was. But you try all these tools, and now you know about all these tools. You know what's out there, right? And you can kind of make decisions on, when something comes up and you need to build something, now you know if it's this or that or whatever that I can go pull from my tool belt. So you just have to start using the tools, and you will throw things away, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's been a day of work. It used to be paying somebody, $60,000 to go build that or something, and now you can do it just by sitting at your computer. I've seen more executives build tools like a CRM or an operating system for their business in the past, since January essentially, than I ever have. I've never seen that. I see them wanting to do it, but they've never been able to just sit down and say, let's go. And then they try it, and it energizes me. I really love giving these talks. It's nothing about, I would love to talk to each of you, right, about your specific use cases, and we can do that. But it's awesome to see people just use these tools and just use AI, and their whole world changes, They're able to get back in their business and be excited again. So please try it. That's what I'll leave you with.
Before we move to any other questions, I want you guys to know this. I'm going to tell a quick little story. Brandon actually inspired this workshop. So not that long ago, Thomas, who's here somewhere, invited Brandon into a room with a bunch of CEOs to show them like a 30-minute exercise like we saw here. And I get a phone call the next morning at like 7:30 a.m. and one of our guys just didn't go to bed that night. He had never really touched AI in any sort of meaningful way. And after listening to Brandon, and Brandon showed him an example very similar to what you saw today, he went home, downloaded Claude, did not go to bed, just stayed up all night and built Ash, his assistant. And he calls me next morning. He's like, man, I've already got Ash doing this, and this, and all these things. And, so when we started talking about this, I said, Brandon, you can't say no to being up here because you're the inspiration of this. Because I saw, that was a 90-minute session we had with him. I saw in 90 minutes a bunch of really smart, talented business owners, something shifted. And one of them walked out of it and actually did something about it. And I can tell you, he did not have any more knowledge in that 90 minutes, or maybe he had a little bit more knowledge, but what he had is he was inspired to go try something. So he didn't walk out of there and go, well, I got to go build this thing and make it perfect. He was like, yeah, I broke a bunch of stuff along the way. And I think that's what this is about. You guys, this is not a crowd full of coders. This is a crowd full of humans who have real things that are sitting on our brain that we want to solve for ourselves. How do we walk out of here through the inspiration of people like Brandon and Hunter and Henry sharing to just go try something? I'm serious. I would love to see some people show up May 18th and be like, hey, I still have questions of how to do something next, but I want to show Jay what I've already done. I walked out of there. I was inspired. I got Claude. I did this thing, whatever it is that you did, and show us. That would be really cool to walk into that deal. And then from May 18th, we're going to tell you guys with Guy and Julio what's next and where are these other places. So we want to keep creating those spaces for people to be able to show up in and to be able to learn together in community. If you go do it by yourself, cool. But can you come back to a community and share with others what you're doing? All right. Yeah, let's give it up for Brandon. Great job. Real quick, with a raise of hands, who wrote down a question that you would ask a business partner right now if you had that tool set up? Okay, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. Okay, I'm really challenging you guys. Write down that question today. I want you to walk out of here with a burning question. And the burning question needs to be about something that you need an outcome for. If you do that, that could inspire you to do like our friend did a few months ago and go home and download this stuff and start using it.